Here's a little video on how I made this deck lid work by motor drive. It goes up, comes down, and latches, and pulls down snug. I think the first place to start is with the hinges. If you notice, I have hinges that are just like Lamborghini hinges. They go through the back of the roof and have a pivot inside. I have a video on YouTube showing how I made those. The reason is, before I had those mechanical linkage style hinges that folded and brought the deck lid up. What was wrong with that is they don't give you enough leverage when you push up with the strut to lift the deck lid up in the air. These hinges, from the point that I push to the actual hinge point, is about 10 inches. You need that mechanical advantage, the leverage, to get enough force to lift the deck lid. The hinges have to be securely mounted onto the deck lid, and there is a 3/4 inch steel frame inside this fiberglass to create a frame. I even modified mine and put an additional runner up this way to another frame that runs across, part of the frame that runs across here, and this bracket bolts onto that structure, so that I have a good solid continuous flow of power that goes right up into a piece of 3/4 that runs across the inside of the fiberglass deck there also. The rod that pushes and lifts the deck lid, I have one rod on this side. You can see that it comes down inside my engine compartment and stays inside of the engine compartment sidewall on here, misses the engine, and goes on down below. The other side, because the engine compartment is constructed differently on these Lambos, it comes out around the radiator fill tank. So I cut a slot in it, and that rod goes down through the slot, exits out the bottom, and goes down to my linkage below. This is the linkage under the car. You can see there. This is the rod way up here. This is the rod that comes down off of the deck lid. Comes down onto an arm. This rod here goes up to the motor drive. Now you can see they pivot down here on a spherical rod end. Now the rod, this rod from the motor connects to this arm that's welded securely to this shaft that runs all the way across to the other side. When it lifts, it pushes this rod up, and out here is where this rod lifts and lowers the deck lid. Now you can see this is a lot farther from the center than this. That's because I needed to increase the distance that travels relative to the distance that was available for travel on this linkage. That's based on the length of the arm and the amount of rotation on the drive motor that turns it. Now that drive motor is located above my frame rail, which is right up here, and it isn't much wider than this because the motor drive came out of the power backrest on a Lincoln Mark 7, and it tilted the backrest up and down. Very strong motor. I have one on this side, I have one on the other side. Probably did not need to, but I had them and I put them in and found out later one would have done the job, but I'm okay using the two. Now those linkages come down, and like I say, they turn this linkage rod mounted to that shaft that goes across under my engine and over to the other side where there's a similar setup. You can see there is a spring. Now what happens is when you come back down with the motor drive, the motor will push this arm down. If this rod here with the linkage to the deck lid needs to stop because the deck lid is closed before this does, this spring will just stretch and leave a cushion. Will never pull too hard on the rod and on the deck lid. That'll prevent you from putting excess stress on the deck lid and hearing fiberglass go crunch. So this is a fail-safe. Going up, it pushes firmly. Your up stop will stop it at the top of travel. You won't crunch fiberglass going up. Coming back down, the spring will stretch, won't overload the rod, and won't crunch your fiberglass. So this is protection for your deck lid. Underneath, you can see here I put a piece of steel out and up to my frame, because this is down very low to the bottom of the car. This is one of the lowest points. I just didn't want to have some rock or block or device hit the bottom of this linkage and drive the deck lid up when it's latched and cause cracking or breaking of the deck lid. So this spring is a guard. You'll also notice on this shaft there's an arm and a gas strut. The gas strut goes back and is secured on my suspension, with a bracket on my suspension. This one gas strut counterbalances the weight of the entire deck lid, so that the motors don't actually have to lift any harder than you would if you were lifting the deck lid yourself by hand. If I disconnect the motor drive, I can just lift the deck lid and it'll stay open at the top. So gas strut working on the shaft, lifts both sides. Okay, so I go over here to the other side and everything's the same over here. And you say, well, why do I need two lifts on the deck lid? Well, that's because if you lift one side of the deck lid, all of the stress of lifting it is going to go into one side of the deck lid, and you're going to depend on all your steel and fiberglass to bear the load of the weight of the entire deck lid and keep it from, twisting and cracking. So you lift evenly by lifting both sides with a cross shaft, and that's your mechanical connection. Also, if one of my motors decided to stop working, this mechanical connection will either warn you it's not, or force it to work, or the motor that doesn't run will force it to stop working, and then you'll know you have an issue. Okay, so there it is. You lift both sides. On here, you'll also notice I have an additional rod end up here with a piece of linkage that goes up. I'll go up top and show you what that does. That connects into my limit switches that control all of this stuff. You can see that linkage rod comes up from below and goes up and connects to this arm, which is on a bell crank, and connects to a linkage rod that goes back this way. And the linkage rod comes back here. And goes, and linkage rod goes back here and connects to a bank of switches in the back here. There's another linkage rod on there up here that goes down and connects to an arm on this bar, which I will explain as soon as I run it and show you what the story is with that. Okay. When the deck lid comes down, because your leverage running the the rod to pull the deck lid down is so far up close to the hinge, you have a lot of deck lid behind it and way out here. Now this thing, you can overpower that strut up there pretty easy. So in order to keep this deck lid secured when you bring it down so it doesn't bounce and bump around while you're driving, I wanted to make a hold down or a pull down motor drive on it. So when the deck lid comes down, it goes into the latch, and the latch pulls it down and secures it against the rubber bumper stop over here. Now all of this stuff is connected to a cross shaft. It's a complete unit that goes from one side to the other. On this unit, I have a latch on this side. I have a latch on this side. They're connected to this shaft. When the shaft rotates, both latches pull down. Each latch has a cable on it. They come around to the center unit over here. This one has a cable. It comes around over here to the center unit. This is a door lock mechanism, lock-unlock mechanism. And what that does is that makes sure the latch catches when it comes down and unlatches when it goes up. So if I push the button to go up, the first thing that happens is that releases the catches and signals a motor to lift these back up into the catch position. That motor is located right down here, and you can see the gears. That is a power window motor. There's the drive motor back there. That's the gearing. That's the rotation. And you can see down below, I just put a ball stud just off of the rotation. That hooks onto a piece of linkage. That linkage hooks to an arm. The arm comes up, rotates that shaft. That shaft pulls both of them down. When it does, it moves that arm. That linkage rod comes up here and rotates this tripper that trips two limit switches. One for the up stop and one for the down stop. So I made adjustable trippers on there. So they stop that drive at the top, ready to catch, and at the bottom when the deck lid is down and secure. So I'll run it down. The deck lid comes down. They catch. The thing fires and it pulls the deck lid down. When it hits the end of travel, limit switch turns the power off, so you don't have any more power on the motor and you can't overdo it. Somebody's going to ask, how do you open a deck lid if the power goes out? Well, this little mechanism right here in the middle is the thing that releases the catches so that the deck lid can come up. So I have an additional piece of linkage on here that goes around to an emergency lever that I can pull and release the catches. You still can't get the deck lid up. Well, you're working against the linkage that's connected to the motor. You can only move it a little bit. So you go underneath and you take the two rods off that were connecting the motor drive to the linkage underneath the engine, and then you can lift the deck lid up and open it without the motor drive for the power. This entire unit here bolts down with two bolts. One right there and one right there. So you take two bolts out and you disconnect some couplings. 1, 2, 3 couplings. You disconnect the manual linkage. You disconnect the linkage from the pull down motor to its stops, and you can just take those two bolts out, lift the whole unit out. It has all of its adjustments. They stay intact. Nothing gets disrupted. You can put it back in. Everything still works just fine. I also have in here built in a couple of mechanical stops. You can see this one stop down there. That's for down so that it mechanically cannot go too far. And then there's another stop right down there that works off of that lever, so it cannot go up too far. So I have mechanical stops built in, I have electrical trippers built in. There's a limit to how much you can pull on the deck lid, and everything is protected and everything works fine. So you want the thing to go up, you fire the linkage and up it goes. Up goes the deck lid.